Okay, here we are, the last slide deck of the week, of the course, of the term, the whole shooting match. So I'll make it brief and good. How's that? All right, so capital rationing. That's the idea that we don't have all kinds of money in our company to invest in umpteen projects. Kind of like here at home. I don't have all kinds of money to get new boots and a new winter coat every year, so I tend to alternate. I wonder what the payback is on that. Okay, so the idea is you have to figure out which one's the best, and so you rank them according to things like net present value, and then you rank them as well according to risk and whether or not you can do the job, or all sorts of things like that. So that's the sort of thing. We start with the actual numbers and see if it's doable and see if it makes sense, okay, which is sometimes two different things. And then we move onwards. Now, when we make investment decisions and we talk about the inflows and the outflows, we got to keep in mind that the only ones we're concerned about are the actual direct flows of money, okay? We don't look at the entire company and think about the heat, light, and hydro and all that fun stuff. No, we just look at exactly what the investment is and exactly the resources we'll either be saving or using to generate hopefully new income, or at least save on other expenses. So this is the sort of thing we look at. We have to look at the exact direct cash flows. And also, let me see. New van, and this is an important thing too, is we have residual costs. If it's a replacement situation in terms of a piece of equipment, roof's slightly different. I don't think there's any residual value on a roof. But we also, if we're going to replace, for instance, a van or a truck or something like that, we also consider the salvage value of the piece of equipment. So let me think, $80,000, $90,000 truck at the end of 5-6 years, depending on how used it is, you might get $5,000 or $6,000 for it. That counts too. Okay, part of the offset of the cost of the new truck. It's an inflow. So in terms of the whole package deal, it's a direct result of getting a replacement truck. So we count the sale of the vehicle as an inflow for the purposes of looking at whether or not it's a good idea, net present value. Bottom right here, we got the big fat calculation for capital cost allowance and generating the tax shield. I'll just define some of these in the next slide, but it is fairly complicated. The good news is I'm just telling you it's there. It exists. If you ever have to use it, it's not too hard to find. And of course, you can always dig through your Fanshawe slides. But there it is. Just be aware that this sort of a calculation exists. And again, we're talking about cash shield and all that sort of fun stuff. For what we do in small business, I'm not convinced this is a useful calculation. Okay, here are all the definitions for the tax shield calculation. We've got the cost of the thing, we've got the salvage value, so that kind of nets out the cost. The cost minus the salvage value times the CCA rate on a vehicle, for instance, is the amortization or depreciation rate is around 30 or 40%, depending on the use of the vehicle. Tax rate of your company, that's the income tax rate. Discount rate, that's the one you want to use. Maybe it's a hurdle rate or the cost of capital, same thing. Present value and corporation. Oh, tax of the corporation, sorry. Where's count? All right, so that's all that means, is the income tax rate of the corporation. Got me stumbling there for a minute. It is complicated. It looks a lot like a cost of capital calculation, but some of the numbers are in different places. That's all. Okay, again, just determine the net cash outflows. All right. And determine or estimate the amounts of and timing of net future cash inflows. Net future cash inflows, that would be net profit if you're looking at a net profit sort of thing, margins, etc. Discount the future cash flows back to the present. That's the time value of money. and add the present value of the capital cost allowance shield using the formula and the appropriate CCA rate. And then if it's all above, if the net present value is above zero, then theoretically you can do the investment or engage the project or whatever the course of events might be. Again, for me, hurdle rates huge, and the longer it takes to get back your money, I'm not really convinced that stretching things out over years and years and years is a great idea. Return on investment, I typically want to cap it at 3 years because it's so difficult that we realistically can't even see where markets or economies are going beyond 3 months, and yet just carry on an investment and say it's going to do this over 5 years. Unless you've got, for instance, a gold mine, and that doesn't even work these days. I don't think it's fair to say anything, evaluate some sort of a project out over 5 years. So in small business, I tend to look at a 3-year window, and even shorter if possible. There's just too much variability and too much risk in what we do as small business owners to really say, okay, yeah, an MPV of 0 or MPV of $20, yeah, let's do it. Doesn't work for me. That's why I really, personally, and you might have gotten that feeling, I'm kind of big on the net present, or excuse me, on the payback period combined with the net present value calculation. Okay, some official summaries on the capital budgeting decision. We're talking about expenditures are going to go for more than a year. I have to back up and say there are some summer sections. Every once in a while, you just have to get a building and get a mortgage. And of course, obviously, you can't project out 20 years, but we assume certain things when we do that anyway. And one of them is that land and buildings can increase in value regardless of what your business does. So that's something a little bit separate. Okay, so net present value and internal rate of return are complete methods for looking at these decisions. Again, net present value is the most widely used, easy to do with Excel, easy to update, again, if you're using Excel, and really when you printed out a graphic vision of what you're up to. And, of course, my favorite, payback period. Okay, again, for big companies, capital budgeting decisions should consider cash flows on after-tax basis because they may generate significant tax shields up in the millions sometimes. So that's the sort of thing larger companies look at. For small business, just take the direct cash flow calculations and don't worry too much about the tax shield, because at the end of the day, it's going to be a conservative approach, which means you're going to be safer. You're going to have more money than what you calculated. Okay, not a great deal, but a little bit more. Don't count on that little bit more, though. Always assume worst case scenario, and you'll be a lot happier. Okay, capital cost allowance, also depreciation, does generate a tax shield as well. It's one of those funny things. It's not an actual cash flow scenario because we had it on the cash flow statement. We actually add it back in. The interesting thing is when we do income tax, we will look at buying a big piece of equipment near the end of the year so we can, quote unquote, get the write-off, the tax write-off. We can get the tax shield right away. This is something you shouldn't be doing by yourself. It should be done with your financial advisor's advice, or at least a calculator or an Excel spreadsheet to support what you're doing. And as an income tax person, I actually have told some of my customers every once in a while, hey, it's time to get a new car because now the time's right, your profits are high, you need a new car. Instead of waiting another 6 months, get it now. And they've actually done quite well on advice like that. Okay. Quick note on net present value. If it's a positive $1,400, by the way, as in one of our examples, that means it's going to increase the shareholder's value by $1,400. Again, I think that was on a $10,000 investment, and that's over 5 years. So, got to be careful with that. Okay, some additional quick thoughts. Discount rate equals hurdle rate equals desired rate of return. interest rate in some cases, cost of capital. All those things can be considered the same thing when you're trying to figure out returns and hurdle rates. Okay, and don't forget that equity equals capital investment by owners. I got an extra equal sign in there, but that's what we're talking about. All valuations are done based on the margin, okay? And this is a little, actually what I talked about a few lectures ago, this week. Great example there. It's going to be 20 months if your margin's 50% on an investment like this. Your payback will be 20 months. Okay, and all the NPVs and IRRs take into the same consideration. You have to use the net cash flows, not your revenue, but your actual net revenue, or net, actually a better word would be net profit on the deal or the investment. And of course, the more interest you pay, the lower your income tax you pay. But if you're paying interest anyway, gee, I'd rather pay less interest. I don't know about you. Let me see, I think that's it for that slide. And finally, for the course, there's been 4 big ideas I've been trying to push in the last end of the term here. One, of course, has been margins. If you're not looking after the margins, you're going to be in a tough spot. And of course, the margins help generate or dictate the break-even. The higher your overhead, the higher it is for break-even. The lower your margins, the higher it is for break-even, on and on and on. Those two are hand in hand. Okay, almost tough to separate them. Receivables. If you have to have receivables, manage them. That's all I can say. You have to look after them. And the cost of your money is going to dictate whether or not you buy things, engage in expansion even. That's the one I didn't even cover, but happens frequently, whether or not to expand to another town, etc., etc., etc. But don't forget there are things like market forces that might influence that decision, and or risk involved with capital expenditures as well. And maybe number 5, I don't know, what do you think? Cash is king. Without it, you can't pay your bills. So gotta have cash, even if you're profitable. But if your customers have your cash, i.e. number 3, the receivables, you're in a bad spot. Okay, so for the exam next week, there won't be any calculations based on net present value or internal rate of return, anything like that. Might have a quick look at, for instance, payback period, but other than that, nothing involving the 2 functions, and most likely a quick weighted average cost of capital. Certainly questions on all these, but no calculations. Okay, nothing where you have to sit down with the Excel spreadsheet and actually do one. Other than that, it's going to be fairly similar to the midterm. And again, 50 minutes, maybe an hour, just depending on how things go. And that's it. Thank you very much.